What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and we finally got the information in regards to the upcoming stuff for Kizuna Clash, and I did make a video yesterday talking about my predictions for what I expect the Super Evolution of Kaido to bring, and that's pretty much what we got today. So we're going to be talking about Kaido, new free-to-play Alber, which is actually, he looks really impressive, and then the Kizuna rare recruits, new support rare recruits, so we'll have a look at those today as well. So let's just jump into Kaido. So if you guys haven't seen that video where I talked about what Kaido does, pretty much everything I said in that video is almost what we got, right? So this is what we have for Kaido. Now, they break it down with the non-level limit broken and then the level limit broken abilities here. So first of all, as for his base effects, just with base evolution with no investments, quick and driven attack by 5x, 5.25 in turns you use his special, and everyone else gets a 4.5 attack boost. This is also something that I kind of thought was going to happen. Not only was he was always boosting quick, but just add a class on top of it, and they ended up doing that. So now he's a quick and driven captain, which I'm super happy about. 5.25, so just slightly higher multipliers, and then 1.5 HP. And then anytime you take 10,000 or more damage, automatically launches his special at the start of the next turn. There's a bit of information here. It says specials launched through the captain ability will not affect the special charge time. Accumulated damage taken will reset after launch from captain ability. If moving battles through special launch from captain ability, the special will not launch at the start of the crew's next turn. Yeah, so just some information there, but yeah, the captain ability still doesn't really do a whole lot, which I was hoping they were going to add some new mechanics to it. I mean, we can have a look at the level limit break captain. So with the level limit break, it does give a 5x boost to the units, 5.5 during the turns you launch the special. So that's actually quite a lot of damage there actually. And then the base for everyone else is still only 4.5, so it's a little bit on the lower end still. But the HP is buffed to 1.65, which is actually pretty substantial. To get a 1.65 buff from that is pretty good. So you're going to have a lot of HP to play around with if you do opt to use him as a captain. And then once again, once you take 10,000 damage, automatically launches his special. But that's all it does. One thing I'm a little bit annoyed about is that there's no cooldown reduction. I think cooldown reduction in his kit would have made a lot of sense, but they opted to not do that. So that's a bit of a weird one for me. But yeah, I kind of wish it just did more, because this is basically all it is. It's a very bare bones captain. More HP is good, more multipliers are good, and adding driven to it is a nice touch, so you don't have to run mono quick teams anymore. So that is like a huge positive, I suppose. And that's probably why they're not adding too much, because they're given, you know, an extra class, which is pretty big. So the special ability of this guy also is a bit different. So with no investments, you still get the effect of increased damage taken, but the other thing is, if there are enemies that already have increased damage taken when you launch the special, it boosts increased damage dealt to 2.25. So whatever they had, it gets buffed up to 2.25 instead, which is good. And then it says applies increased damage taken to all enemies by 2.25 for one turn. Otherwise, 1 million fixed damage. Or it's not fixed, it's non-type damage. So if the enemy gets inflicted with this increased damage taken, that will actually affect the 1 million damage, which will multiply by 2.25. Changes all slots into matching, gives himself a Wano slot. So that's the special. It, again, doesn't really do a whole lot. I'm pretty sure that this is actually incorrect, though, now that I'm reading over this, because this effect in the brackets, I believe this is a 2x boost, and then this would be buff it to 2.25. There could be a bit of an error with this one, because when you have a look at the level limit break fully invested special ability, it says that if there are enemies with the increased damage taken, it will increase it to 2.5, which is pretty good. It says increase it by 2.5, but it wouldn't be like increasing it by 2.5. It increases whatever multiplier it is, it scales it all the way up to 2.5. But then it says it applies 2.25 increased damage taken, otherwise, if they don't have that effect enabled on them. It does say, though, that if the enemy is immune to status effects, it applies increased damage taken to all enemies, ignoring immunity to status effects and everything, by 2x for one turn. So at a bare minimum, you're always going to get a 2 times increased damage taken, which is incredible. But remember, as we said, Kaido can take the hits, automatically launch his special without affecting his cooldown, use his special naturally to make this become a 2.5 times increased damage taken, and I like that. I think this is really, really cool. And then the same as before, still 1 million damage to all enemies, and then all slots to matching, give himself a Wano slot through block. I wish that he just changed all slots through block into matching. Would have been nice, but they didn't opt to do that. So there's not a lot of changes, but they're just some slight tweaks that make him slightly better. I don't know if he's really going to see a lot of play with all of these new changes, but the fact that he does add Driven into the mix so you can run a Driven team instead of Mono Quick definitely helps him out. And then his super type, you need to be below 50% to launch it, which is a little annoying. But the effect itself also did get a bit of a buff, removing threshold and damage reduction by 3 turns. Previously, it was only a 2-turn removal, so this is a pretty big change. With double Kaido, you can now remove 6 turns of Rainbow Shield and Threshold with the super type alone. Also, the 2 million damage to all enemies. That's interesting. I believe before, this was only to one enemy, so this is actually a pretty big buff if this was... if this is actually to all enemies instead of one single unit. This is actually really good. And then quick characters get super quick. Now as for his Rumble stuff is looking pretty nice. So the Rumble special, it does level 3 defense down, 2 times damage, 50% chance of paralysis, and then strength enemies get 50% chance of special bind. So this is actually the exact same special, but they just added this effect where strength enemies get a 50% chance of special bind. But with investments, he now will do a level 5 defense down, 2.75 damage, still 50% chance of paralysis, but 70% chance of special bind. So with investments, this level limit break Rumble special is actually very, very good. Remember, 26 CT for his special, incredible for what this already does. So it's a fast special, more defense down, more damage, is just a better unit all around. Evade special bind, 40% damage reduction from strength with investments. Rumble passive, 5 HP to quick, 5 blowaway percent up for quick, level 3 defense. I believe the blowaway percent is a new addition to this character. And then for the first 40 seconds, this is all the same. And then with his investments, you get level 6 HP, level 6 blowaway, level 4 defense, and then still level 10 attack and speed to himself. So an additional addition of HP, blowaway, and defense with the investment. So not major changes with his PvP kit, but he was already so good in Rumble that he really didn't need much of an upgrade in the first place. So I think this unit will definitely still see play in Rumble, and then with some of these additions, I can definitely see his increased damage taken, manipulation, whether he can apply it through immunity, or if they already have it, you can get a higher multiplier version of it. I think it's actually really cool. So the next thing I want to talk about is this Alber, which is the free-to-play Kizuna Clash character that we're going to be receiving. This unit looks really good. I mean, just have a look at this free-to-play captain ability. -1 cooldown to Driven Slasher, 1.25 health, 4.5 times attack, and then completely removes his own Bind, Despair, Paralysis, Special Bind, Special Reverse. That is just so good. So he just avoids a bunch of these debuffs on himself. So if you run double Alber, you can just always remove Despair. You don't even have to worry about it. You know, the captain's being inflicted with a bunch of these debuffs. It doesn't matter. Alber resists it all, so that's really dope. His special, though, is interesting. 60% health cut to your side of the field. He removes 6 turns of Despair, so even if you don't opt to use him as a captain, you can still remove Despair. But considering how good his captain is, it is weird that he does remove Despair, but it is what it is. He reduces all enemies at Rainbow Shield and Threshold by 3. And then boosts color affinity of Slasher and Driven by 2.25 for 3 turns, but this color affinity cannot be removed by the crew or the enemy, so that's a nice effect where you can have this color affinity last for an extended period of time, and even if you move on to a new stage and the enemy removes your beneficial effects, you're going to keep this color affinity buff, which is strong. He then further says that if Kaido is in your crew or set as a support on himself, he changes his own slot including block into tandem, which is good. We'll talk about that in a moment. He also prevents his own slot from being changed until he lands a perfect strike, so slot change impossible on himself. But then this is a really interesting effect where he inflicts 5 times increased damage taken on your side of the field for 99 turns, which is obviously a bad thing. You take 5 times more damage. It then says, though, nullifies a portion of each enemy's damage dealt that exceeds 10,000 for 2 turns. What this means is that for 2 turns, you have like a damage threshold. So once the enemy does over 10,000 damage, the excess of 10,000 is reduced by a very significant portion. It says nullifies a portion, so I don't know what that means exactly, but it's significant damage reduction. But then it says after 1 turn, completely removes the crew's increased damage taken and damage threshold. I don't really get the whole point of this. This whole thing just didn't need to be here, to be quite honest. It should have just been like, if Kaido's on the crew, you get a tandem slot and you can't change it. This effect didn't really need to be here, but sure. But for a free-to-play unit, I don't think this character is that bad. As for his sailor abilities, though, He can't be blown away, he avoids paralysis completely on himself, and he cannot be stunned. That's also a really nice thing to have. The fact that he avoids stun and then has a special that is a health cut to remove stun off of the other characters on your crew. I love the design here. He has a critical strike, he has enrage it looks like, and he has super tandem. So the super tandem says when Kaido is on the crew, except as a support character, and it's a 1.75 tandem attack boost for Driven, Powerhouse, and Striker. The tandem condition is a bit weird, like how many characters do you have to tap with in order to get it? That is not listed here, but still a 1.75 Driven, Powerhouse, Striker tandem attack boost for a free-to-play unit doesn't seem that bad, honestly. Like, this is a really good free-to-play character, and I think that this character will actually see play, even using as a captain just for the innate ability to remove a bunch of those debuffs. Seems actually pretty good. And then finally at the bottom here, we've got a couple more characters. We've got Marco and Frankie. These are two rare recruit characters that are coming in the Kizuna Clash Sugo Fest. And then the dog and cat character are a support rare recruit that is coming for the Super Kizuna Clash as well. So we'll talk about those characters right here. So Marco, his captain ability doesn't matter. That's not really important, but his special, it says that if you have 10% or less HP when you launch the special, you get a conditional boost against characters that are inflicted with either defense down or increased damage taken by 2.25 for 3 turns. So it's not 2 conditional boosts. It still only counts as 1 conditional boost, but it's a conditional boost that works against multiple conditions. So it works, you get the buff either if the enemy has defense down or increased damage taken. If the enemy is inflicted with both of these debuffs, you don't get both of the effects, like a 2.25 like 2 times. It's just one of them, but you only have one debuff that needs to be applied, which is cool. It says after that, reduces all enemies threshold and damage reduction by 6, which is very good. Reduces 90% damage for 2 turns, and strength X quick get a 2.25 or boost also for 2 turns. That's not a bad special, but having to be at 10% or below is a little harsh. Not gonna lie there. It's pretty harsh. If he has less than 30%, you get 150 base attack, slice slots are matching, and no real support to really make note of. But the Marco, he's got good utility, conditional boost, or boost, damage reduction. Not a bad unit, I guess. The Frankie unit, on the other hand, this unit sets all enemies' defense to 0. If you hit 2 perfects during the turn you launch the special, you get defense to 0 in the next turn as well. He reduces ship bind, and chain reduction, all by 6. So that's kind of cool. Bind reduction by 6 is good, but removing ship bind and chain reduction by 6 is kind of weird because those are 2 very uncommon debuffs. And then for the chain reduction, you can kind of get around it with chain boundary, chain lock. There's lots of ways to get around that. So this utility is not as good as what the Marco has. This guy also says that he cuts your crew's health by 95%, but however much HP that you lost, you deal 30 times that to damage all enemies. So he's a damage dealing special, which is good. And then he also does 200 times his attack and quick damage to all enemies for 3 turns. So he gets around resilience. So we can make note of some of these things that these characters do, and we can kind of surmise as to what these characters are going to deal with in this Kizuna Clash and how annoying this Kizuna Clash is going to be. We'll have to wait and see, of course. He doesn't have a support either, which is a little unfortunate. But that's the Frankie and the Marco. And then, of course, we have the dog and cat. Now, the whole purpose of this unit is just to be a support. So the support for this unit only attaches to characters that are quick, slasher, and striker. So the pool of characters that this character can attach to is quite restrictive, because it does mention that the character that they attach to must be like all of them. It has to be a quick unit that is a slasher and also a striker. So there's not many characters you can attach to, namely Yamato, the new Yamato that came out for New Year's, and Roger and Odin. Those are like the 2 characters that you can attach this character to, which is pretty harsh, honestly. But the effect itself, at the start of the 3rd battle, reduces the cooldown of the supported unit by 1, reduce paralysis by 3, or that's actually reduces the crew's paralysis by 3, which is very good, reduces all enemy barriers by 1, and then it also adds 10% to slasher and striker characters' next final tap. So with this alone, it makes you think that potentially this character wants to attach to Yamato, because Yamato has this effect of stacking damage for the next final tap character. but this can attach to Roger and Odin as well, so do keep that in mind. But honestly, this character seems good, but if they are kind of shoehorning this condition to only really being used with either Yamato or Roger and Odin, if you don't have a lot of investments into those characters, I don't even know if this character is going to be a worthwhile pickup. I'll have to wait and see exactly what the Kizuna Clash does as we prepare some teams to really decide as to whether this character is worth pulling for or not. But that is the breakdown of all of the information that we currently have. We've got the new Alber, who looks a very, very good free-to-play unit. The new 6+ Kaido, which looks like a really solid addition to our accounts. And then we have the Kizuna rare recruits Marco and Frankie, who I think are like just okay, probably not worth picking up. And then the dog and cat, which they seem okay, but it's hard to use them because they can only really attach to a pretty restrictive pool of characters. But that's going to wrap it up for me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this entire new batch down below in the comment section. Really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.